I told you so. I told you so multiple times is what I'll say. You remember when Tandem Oled first hit the news and everybody was going crazy talking about QD-OLED is over, it's dead, blase, blase. And you remember who was the only one that was here saying, hey, Sony has a QD-OLED coming, and everyone insisted that the BRAVIA 8 would be replaced with a Tandem Oled, to which I told everybody I had a product manager contact that told me that there would be a QD-OLED this year. Nobody wanted to believe me. I got called out of my name and all kinds of things. And now look what happened. Everyone's surprised. Surprise, surprise! Here we are with a Tandem Oled not being the BRAVIA 8. And instead, we have the BRAVIA 8 Mark II, a Quantum.OLED, which, spoiler, for anybody out there who's maybe confused, this thing is going to be targeting the 3000 nit range. It's not going to target quite as much as the 4000 from what I've been told, okay? It's going to target more of an S95D range as far as the panel, and I can only imagine that is so when the brand new BRAVIA 9 Mark II, again, if the naming scheme continues, it will be the successor and the replacement of the mini LED with the RGB mini LED, probably called the BRAVIA 9 Mark II. Okay, and I have been kind of soft leaking this information for months now. I mean months, right? And it's to the point where people have to understand. I've been doing this for a long, long time, okay? And when you do this long enough, you find out certain pieces. For example, the BRAVIA 8 Mark II is basically an A95L. It's not really going to have a whole lot of new features outside of extra brightness. Now, there is always a talk with Sony about being more accurate, closer to a reference monitor, blah, 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 blah. The reality is most people don't give a shit about that. Most people genuinely care about the picture quality, and the picture quality will be on par with a Sony A95L, albeit brighter. That's the big whoop-de-doo, okay? Now, again, you have to wait for their next RGB mini LED, or rather their mini LED invention called RGB mini LED, again, transforming it into something different to challenge OLED. But that's not until next year, okay? Or maybe later this year, who knows, if they get it done as a soft launch to see how it does. Because we saw that with the Samsung S95B, where it was this technology nobody expected to come soon, and then it came hella soon. So that's one aspect of this. But the other thing to consider is, again, you're seeing a copy and paste TV for a reason. It's in the same chassis, more or less, as what we had on the A95L. Again, same feet, same everything. It's a copy and paste now, just with a different panel to mirror more of the Samsung S95D without the matte finish bullshit. So for everybody who wanted that tier of television, but brighter, congratulations, we're about to get it. Now it's going to cost a pretty penny. This is, again, if it's keeping in line with what Sony does, it's going to have a launch point of $3,000, $2,999 for the 55, $3,299 for the 65-inch variation. There will be no 70, 80, so on and so forth, if we keep with what Sony typically does with this. Now, that being said, this is more of, I think, great news for those of us who were sick of Samsung and their bait and switch bullshit, where they give you one amazing TV and then destroy it with patches later on. Well, now Sony enters the fray yet again with a Quantum.OLED. I personally will be checking it out to see if it holds better or worse than what it did. And again, take these videos that I make and log them down in your memory, or write notes down or something that on this day he was excited for the BRAVIA 8 Mark II. Because if the BRAVIA 8 Mark II ends up being amazing, wonderful, we all win. But if it doesn't, I will tell you. But I am excited for it, to be very transparent and honest with you. And I also really do, as a Sony shooter, think it's really cool that we're getting into camera territory as far as the naming scheme. Because as I literally sit here on a Sony Alpha 7 Mark IV, Mark V, whatever the fuck it is. I think it's Mark IV. Yeah, it's the Mark IV. I think it's cool that they do that, right? You know, A7R Mark II, you know. They like doing the Mark this and that. So it's nice to see that with the TVs. I hope the same level of quality elevates You know what I mean? So we're not just like, oh, the Mark II was shit. Maybe wait for the Mark V. I hope that's not like what we end up doing. Again, it's a bit gimmicky, but I'm with it. I don't mind. It is what it is. What I do care about more is that, again, Quantum.OLED is not going anywhere anytime soon, despite what all, and don't let anyone who's excited now just for the sake of getting clicks and views fool you. All of them, like a month ago, 2 months ago, whatever it was, were all singing the praises of Tandem OLED and how amazing it is and how wonderful it is and blah, 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 blah. But the reality is, I was the only one that hunkered down and told you straight the fuck up. The Quantum.OLED is, for Samsung and Sony, the king of TV. And I also told you that they're going to be the ones that takes the crown this year. Mark my words on that. Jot it down on your little notepad. It's not going to be no fucking Tandem nothing, okay? Tandem is just a slight upgrade to the WOLED antiquated technology. QD-OLED is cutting edge shit. That's why Sony went QD-OLED versus Tandem. They could have gotten the contract with LG because, they already had that foot in the door, and they said, fuck that, we're going with QD-OLED. There is a reason for that. Now, whether the LG G5 advocates will figure that out on their own, good luck. They've turned into basically the Apple iPhone crowd, where every year, no matter what Apple does, they'll buy it. And I'm not like that. I want to see true innovation, and QD-OLED gives us that right now. And I'm excited to see it with Sony processing and whatever new things they can do along the way. That being said, I want to hear what you guys think about it. Do you think it matters or not? Also, as a little sub note, yes, I know there's like a BRAVIA 5 Mark II, or BRAVIA 5, I think, and then there's a BRAVIA 2 Mark II or whatever. Who cares about those TVs? Those TVs are trash TVs. Throw them in the garbage right now. They're not going to amount to anything. They're not going to beat the TCL Q6MK, so why even fucking talk about them? That's the truth. Dust them off. They're worthless. The only real superstar this year is the BRAVIA 8 Mark II, and the rest of Sony's TVs can just go in the garbage. And that's as real as anyone's going to tell you. But again, would love to hear what you guys have to say down below. Thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.